Hi, I'm Robert. I'm one of the co-authors of React.js ebook, and I wanted to show you what you can expect inside the book. Hi, let's see what's inside React.js ebook. Let's start with the first chapter that we have. At the very beginning, you start with the hands-on chapter. So it's a hello world in React, step by step, very simple thing. When you start by cloning the repository that we gave you, and you start by doing the examples. And in the first chapter, you learn how to render step by step, how to render first thing using React on your front end. And you learn what's the syntax, how you use React, what are the React DOM elements, and so on. Then we go into something a bit more complicated. So instead of just rendering one very simple tag, you render two of them. It's, like I said, it's a hello world. So you start with a very simple beginning, and then we will build on top of that. Then you learn how to respond to click events, which are like the most popular thing in browser. So you know how to detect that something was clicked, how to make the application do something when user clicked on your link. And then we learn how to make the page change after the user clicked. So it's a very basic thing, but later we build on top of that and we introduce the concept of components, which are the building blocks of React. And they're like partials in Rails, but they have behavior with them, so they're not only for rendering, but they can also react to what's happening in the browser and based on that change the content. But the overall hello world example is very simple, and it's not until the next chapter when we go into something a bit more complicated, but still quite easy. The second chapter, create new meetup form, is also a practical one. So I'm going to show you the example. So it's a meetup form. It's form that will actually submit data to your database. So it's full stack solution. And it's dynamic in a way that when you change, for example, dates, you can see that the date of the week is changing. And when you start writing like some invitations for people to join you, you can see that the page is responding. You can clear the CEO text that you want to have as a slug of this meetup. You can bring it back. When you write, the CEO is like changing automatically. So that's how it works. It's not that complicated, but it's already reacting to various kinds of changes that the user can make. You will learn how to handle normal input, select inputs, and so on, and how to react to the fact that something is appearing and reappearing, how React makes it all possible without you wondering how to re-render, how to update the page. You don't worry about that, because every time something changes, it's like the logic is the same way as you rendered it first time. You just need to react to the events, like title changed, and update the state of your React component. So that's what you are going to learn in the second chapter. And it's only about 30 pages, and all of that is enough for you to have like validations which are triggered when user is editing given field. But we also learn how to trigger the validation when you press save, so that all fields are validated, and if something is wrong, it's prevented from submitting the form. So that's the second hands-on chapter. We are going to learn about validations, about box components, and it's all integrated with Rails so that we show you how to deal with the controllers, what changes you need to make that happen, to keep all of that example working all the time. So the next chapters are more technical ones. They are about mastering the component. So you learn what makes the component, what's state properties, and how to use the render method, what you should be careful about, what's mounted and unmounted component, and things like that. You also learn about children, so how to create a component that can be a wrapper for other components. You learn about mixins and context, things that make it possible for you to build your UI from multiple components that have like small functionalities, and other bigger components can reuse the smaller components. So that's the thing. It's related mostly to React API and how it works, what are the best practices. So that's the anatomy of React component. So the integration with external world chapter is all about interacting with browser, with the user actions, and with other libraries. So we start with forms and event handlers, and then you learn how to make things happen based on what the user is doing in a form, like what she's clicking or what she's writing, typing, like what are the interactions and stuff like that. However, the lifecycle methods and the React find DOM node are more about how to integrate your React component with other existing libraries like autocomplete or jQuery plugins and things like that. So, because sometimes you need to integrate your React rendering component with technologies which are not based on React. They are either based on pure browser API or often on jQuery. So that's integration with external world in a few words. So of course, after some time, your React components will get bigger and bigger and have more state, more logic that they need to maintain. So in passing state chapter, you learn two techniques that are useful for passing the state between components and maintaining it and keeping it right. In animation, you learn some ways that React already makes for you possible to display some kind of animations. The animations are quite basic, but I think they can be very useful in the dynamic components when you need to interact with user actions and make sure that the user sees something, is notified about something, and sometimes we don't want very big re-rendering changes between different windows to appear immediately. We want some kind of animation that will make the user interaction better. In testing chapter, we show you 3 ways that you can use to test your React components so there are no bugs. And then we left you 3 tips that will make your React components better, easier, and with less duplications. So how to remove duplication in handlers, what are the problems with the set state API and how to avoid it, what you can do about it, what you should know to not shoot yourself in the foot. And one of the solutions is to keep state outside React. So there is a small chapter about that. And then you have a lot of bonuses. So like 60 pages of our blog post and other very useful React knowledge that you can find inspiring or useful for you at some point in time. So as you can see, that's quite a lot of knowledge that will help you get started with React in Rails and help you build much more dynamic and user-friendly interfaces and forms.